Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's another Wednesday, and today we'll be talking about contracts in the energy sector. And I'm excited that our mentor is already here. One of the mentors is already here. My name is Juliana Imam, and I'll be anchoring this session for today. This is the 8th week for the energy group, and we'll be rounding up this Friday. So we're excited that we've been able to pull through. So with that, I would like to read what we're about so that those who are joining us for the first time can know more about us. So the JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program for the energy industry is a quarterly program for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network mentorship, internship discussion forums, industry updates, and resource materials from experienced mentors. This program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the world. You can watch our videos by searching for JIIPCC on YouTube and Facebook. Our hashtag is JIIPCC Our objectives are to provide easy access to quality professional guidance, training, and resource materials for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts in Africa, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation of mentees, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, and scholarship and job placements for the mentees. Also, I would like to encourage our mentees to take advantage of the private mentorship program, which is available for those who are interested. So some of our mentors have graciously agreed to have 30 minutes of their time with the mentees. So if you're interested in meeting with any of the mentees, kindly use the link bit.ly/JIIPCC and we'll be able to schedule a time with the mentor. I would like to let us know that the session is coming to an end, and so registration for the next set has begun. So if you know anyone who is intelligent, industry, fintech, or patent drafting, please send this to them and let them know that they can register and us today, and we're excited to be meeting with them. So our first mentor for today is Ayobami Dafe Iola. He's a barrister and solicitor, compliance specialist, PhD researcher, and law author. He has about 12 years experience working in law firms, oil and gas, power and marine companies in Nigeria and the United Kingdom, where he gained in-depth knowledge in litigation and dispute resolution, commercial and corporate practices, corporate governance, contracting, regulatory compliance, and ISO, internal audit, due diligence, and foreign investment regulation. He obtained his law degrees from schools in Nigeria and England and was awarded several certificates from Ivy League schools in the United States, Yale University contract law, University of Pennsylvania compliance program, and top ranked schools in the United Kingdom, University College London, GDPR, King's College London, the Modern Judiciary, Coventry University, Business Strategy. He's a member of several organizations such as the British Nigeria Law Forum, International Association of Marine and Shipping Professionals, International Compliance Association, and the Nigerian Bar Association. He has some published works with Lambert International, Germany, Title International Corporations and Joint Ventures, legislations that limit foreign investment. It's on sale on Amazon, and Journal of Applied Business and Economics, New York, titled Companies' Right to Choose Its Nationality, among others. He is currently a consulting legal manager, Kwali Genco FZE, at Sterling Exploration and Energy Production Co. Limited. Our second mentor for today is Tommy Amo. He's a project finance attorney at a top legal law firm, top global law firm. He advises lenders, sponsors, and developers on developing and financing of energy and infrastructure projects. He's qualified to practice law in Nigeria and New York, USA. He obtained his LLM degree at the New York University, after which he observed a fellowship at the International Energy Agency, Paris. And our final mentor for today, hold on, sorry. Our final mentor for today is Afolabi Ojosu. Afolabi Ojosu is a manager, legal and corporate service at Smile Communications Nigeria Limited. He has peculiar expertise in telecommunication and energy projects, development, regulation, and policy. He has advised government, operators, and investors on a wide range of transactions involving the development of on-grid and off-grid power projects, metering services, offshore oil and gas exploration, production facilities, utilities and infrastructure, a keen electricity management expert. He is a former legal advisor to the Nigerian Association of Energy Economics and doctoral candidate at the Center of Petroleum, Energy Economics and Law of the University of Ibadan. Prior to joining Smile, Afolabi has held contracts and corporate advisory roles at Ikeja Electric PLC, Cowrie Partners, and Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the Enugu State Ministry of Justice. He's an avid author and has been published in acclaimed academics, legal, and business publication. And so with that, we welcome all our mentors and our mentees here today present, and we'll be going straight into the presentations for today. So would like to hear from group one. Kindly unmute yourself and share your slides, and you can begin your presentation. Okay, so if group one is here from group two.
Good afternoon. I'm Jibola. I'll be presenting for group one. I'll be presenting on the topic global best practices for energy contracts. Okay. Over the years, federal agencies benefit from lessons learned during utility energy service contracts. And best practices from getting the value from these contracts have been identified as key components to getting successful utility energy service projects. While each federal agency and its relationship with its serving utilities is unique, considering best practices across these topics can make utility energy service contracts more successful and easy to implement. So there are some certain practices that must be followed to determine the success of these contracts, which is financing, decreasing interest, buy down and buyout approaches. So okay, let me take it from the beginning. I actually made a mistake. I'll be presenting on the topic global best practices for energy contracts. And the table of contents consists of these three topics: meaning of energy contract, steps to acquire an energy contract, and global best practices for an energy contract. Meaning of an energy contract. Energy contract means for the purchase or sale of electrical energy or any related attributes, including but not limited to capacity, resource adequacy, transmission, congestion rights, demand response product, or environmental attributes. It is an agreement for the purchase of energy, renewable energy, or related products, including long-term power purchase agreements, master power purchase, and sale agreements entered into by provider for the benefit of customer. I'll take on the steps to curate or acquire an energy contract. The following steps are required as stipulated steps to curate an energy contract, which are globally recognized as best practices, which takes conservation, environmental protection, and renewability at the front road. Stage one is identify requirements. Resources and funding approach is important to know a number of key parts of your potential project to ensure you have a robust basis for commencing a project, getting approvals, communicating requirements to bidders, and ultimately implementation of your energy contract. And some certain key questions must be included in stage one of curating the contract, which includes what are you doing the project, and also the requirements, either technical, financial requirements for undertaking the project, and how the project will be resourced through the whole process. And step two is the tender phase. Good preparation is critical to a successful tender. You need to understand how you are planning to procure your energy contracts. Gathering information on the properties within the scope of your project will be important to convey to bidders the basis of the opportunity. Also, bidders will be keen to understand areas such as energy use, current building, and current building. This information will help them to prepare for site visits during the tender phase and help in developing proposals. Good tender documents will articulate requirements, identify how bids will be assessed, and provide relevant information. A good competitive tender process to select the energy service company, commonly referred to as ESCO, should enable a solid foundation for the following stages. Stage three is the full investment grade proposal. The investment grade proposal, otherwise known as IGP, is produced by the energy service company and should detail key measures, including the energy conservation measures to be installed, guaranteed energy savings, tons of carbon dioxide to be saved each year, capital cost, maximum payback period, and a measurement and verification plan. The investment grade proposal should also detail how and when the energy service company proposes to install the identified energy conservation measures. The IGP process involves a thorough survey of buildings, and it is important that clients engage with the appointed energy service company during the investment grade proposal creation time, so that these companies can develop a better understanding of the utility of such buildings. The stage four deals with the installation of energy conservation measures. Once the investment grade proposal is completed and agreed upon, the energy service company can be appointed under the implementation contract to proceed with the installation of energy conservation measures. Timescales for installation will depend on the size and complexity of the property portfolio and the types of energy conservation measures being installed. This may also depend on when certain energy conservation measures can be installed, since there may be restrictions on when major improvements can be undertaken. Stage five deals with the service delivery and the monitoring of performance. Once installation is complete, as in installation of the energy conservation measures, the project should move into the service delivery phase. The specific nature of service provided will depend upon the contract. Energy savings are a key benefit that should be achieved, and it may be that operational and maintenance service are also provided by the energy service company. As energy savings are a essential focus of an energy procurement contract, it is important that these savings are monitored through an appropriate measurement and verification plan, which should have been part of the earlier mentioned IGP, that is the investment grade proposal. The next outline is the global best practices for an energy contract. Federal agencies benefit from lessons learned during utility energy service contracts. Over the years, best practices from getting the value from utility energy service contracts have been identified from successful utility energy service contracts. While each federal agency and its relationship with its serving utility is unique, considering best practices across these topics can make these contracts more successful and easy to implement. And there are some certain best practices that must underpin this contract, which is the financing, decreasing interest, buy down and buy out approach, contract competition, diversifying project portfolios. I'll be explaining financing. Financing is a significant portion of utility energy service contract cost. Experience shows several things the federal government can do to get the best value by reducing utility energy service contract financial transaction cost and interest. Interest rates are are based on the sum of an index rate on the date the transaction is signed. The premium reflects the cost of obtaining the financial under prevailing market conditions, financial risk, transaction cost, and profit for the finance company. The cost of financing varies depending on a number of factors. Optimizing one or more of these factors can reduce interest rates in favor of the federal agencies. Some of the factors include terms of financing, amount of financing, utility bond rating, financial status of contractors, perceived performance risk, contractual provisions, pertinence to agency mission, type and complexity of projects, and also perceived risk to the finance company. Transaction costs. Utility companies will cover transaction costs and overhead as a separate finance charge, or more rarely in the premium. Financial transaction costs have decreased as more federal agencies use the same basic contractual forms and clauses, and as financial companies became more familiar with the constraints and uniqueness of funding energy projects. All other things being equal, using standard and acceptable contract terms reduce the perception of risk, shortens approval time, and reduce transaction costs. Also, market fluctuation. Market fluctuation in the financial market affects premiums and index. For example, the current trend includes falling index offset by higher premiums due to a more conservative and restricted corporate credit market. This may continue as long as current concerns about the economy persist. Until recently, the base index for utility energy service contract finance rate was the US Treasury rate for a time period approximating that of the loan. In 2001, the finance community indicated that the international swap rate was preferred because it best reflects the cost of money on the market where this project must complete financing. And number two, decreased interest paid in federal utility. Federal agencies can leverage annual payments to get the best value from utility energy service contracts. By decreasing total interest paid, annual payments allow fiscal year of payments in advance. This method is attractive to finance companies and may also fit federal budgets and funding constraints, saving a substantial amount of interest expenses. Also, savings are generated because financing is amortized faster and less interest accrues over the term of the project's funding. The third is buy down and buyout approaches. There are several recommended buy down and buyout approaches that allow federal agencies to leverage prepayment to get the best value from utility energy service contracts. Most utility energy service contracts allow the federal government to prepay a funding obligation at any time during the term of the contract in accordance with a pre-established termination schedule. The federal government can reduce its costs associated with prepayments, such as by limiting prepayments to actual terminations for convenience. Minimizing prepayment costs. It is important that alternatives to paying a premium rate and having increased monthly payments over the entire term of the financing protect against a possible prepayment shortfall. Another way that prepayments can be accepted without adding a premium or penalty is by allowing the finance company to reinvest the money for the benefit of the government and use the accrued interest and principal to shorten the term of the transaction. The fourth factor is competing federal utility energy service contracts. Opening utility energy service contracts to competing franchise utility companies ensures federal agencies get the best value for their projects. Federal agencies are not legally required to compete for utility incentive services provided by the established source utility and the utility's franchise service territory. The services are available. The Energy Policy Act of 1992 states that there should be no restriction on federal facilities directly benefiting from the services the same as any other customer. The exception is if there is more than one serving utility offering utility energy services. In this case, the Federal Acquisition Regulation and good fiscal management require federal agencies to evaluate each utility and select the best value for such utility contract. evaluation can be as simple as a discussion or as rigorous as a formal competitive procurement. In either case, the federal agency should pay close attention to the utilities, related experience and expertise, the references and success stories, project markup costs, specific offers to limit administration costs. Federal agencies must decide whether to compete at the level of whether to compete, and also they must decide on the level of the competition. However, the General Services Administration in its model agreement requires utility companies to competitively select technical subcontractors that do the actual work. The model agreement also requires subcontractors' plans to comply with federal utility contract requirements, either the General Service Administration wide area or other delegated authority contracts. And the fifth factor is diversifying project portfolio for utility energy service contracts. Building a diversified project portfolio enhances utility energy service contracts to ensure federal agencies get the best value possible. Energy efficiency measures are inherent in USA projects. However, do not overlook the possibility for renewable energy and water efficiency and other conservation measures. Building a portfolio of energy service projects lowers overall contracting costs while increasing energy cost savings. This portfolio approach offers additional benefits by reducing contract and administrative burdens and optimizing energy savings. That will be all, and this will be the references. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ajibola, for the presentation. I noticed that you were reading it, so I just hope that you've been able to internalize it also. Let's hear from Group 2. Who is presenting for Group 2?
Presenting for Group 2, Ma.
Okay, you can share your screen and begin the presentation.
Okay, Tolu would share the screen. So just wait for Tolu.
I think you can begin the presentation while he is working on the slide.
Okay, Group 2, we're talking about the importance of model joint operating agreements and key clauses. So we'll start with the definition of what a joint venture agreement is. So basically, a joint venture agreement is a contract between two parties, usually companies, to put resources in an undertaking or venture that usually outlines a specific goal or time frame. So practically from the energy, oil and gas industry, we know that the energy sector is such a big space. Most times it's not easy for just one party to do all the exploration and production. So most times two companies come together to undertake such activities. So the contract they draft, that's the two separate companies, is what is known as a joint venture agreement. So we'll be looking at how a model joint agreement should look like and key clauses that we feel that should be in the agreement. So we talked about the parties. So it's very important. They can be individuals, but most times they're usually incorporated bodies. So terms under a joint venture agreement. most times you see in a joint venture agreement, there's usually the purpose or object of the venture. So why are we undertaking this? Is it in terms of exploration or production? So that's what should be taken into consideration. The name and the principal office of the organization too would always be in a joint venture agreement. So if it's A, B, and Co, where is your address? So it's always there. So you have the share capital and structured shareholdings. So that is also very important. We need to know who are taking up shares, which of the investors, because most times you have investors in such agreements. So how are they taking up shares in that particular venture? So after that, we have the management and the administration of the company. So eventually you have to specify the kind of arrangements, which of the parties is going to be in charge of the operations, which of the parties is going to be in charge of the funding, and so on. So the scope of the operations also is very important. We have to understand how each party within the framework, like what are they undertaking to do within the agreements. So if this party is taking operation, you outline the responsibilities. If this party is taking care of funding, you outline the responsibilities. So after that is taking care of also the obligation of the party, as I've said, profit and dividends. So at the end of the whole agreement, the profit, how is it going to be shared? How are dividends going to be given to the shareholders? Next slide. Next slide, please. Hello, Tolu. So types of joint venture agreement. We have the operational joint venture, we have the risk sharing joint venture, and we have the capability sharing joint venture. Next slide, please. Hello. Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello, can anyone hear me? Okay. So the next slide, we are giving instances multinational ventures with NNPC. So Shell Petroleum Company of Nigeria Limited, a joint venture operated by Shell accounts for more than 45% of Nigerian total oil production, 899,000 barrels per day in 1997 from more than 80 oil fields. The joint venture is composed of NNPC 55%, Shell 30%, ELF 10%, and Agri 5%, and operates largely onshore, on dry land, or in the mangrove swamp. So that is a type of JV that was entered into between Shell and NNPC. So the second one, kind of JV was entered between Chevron Nigeria Limited. It was a joint venture between NNPC, where NNPC had 60% and Chevron had 40%, and has in the past been the second largest producer, approximately 400,000, with fields located in the Warri region west of the Niger River and offshore in shallow water. So Mobil has also undertaken a joint venture with NNPC. So a joint venture between NNPC had 60% and Mobil had 40%, operates in shallow water of Akwa Ibom State in the southeastern delta, an average production of 632,000 in 1997, making it the second largest producer against 543,000 in 1996. Mobil also holds a 50% interest in a production sharing contract for deep water block further offshore, and is reported to plan to increase output to 900,000 by 2000. Next slide. So we also talked about the Nigerian Agri Oil Company Limited. There was a joint venture operated by AGIP and owned by NNPC. NNPC had 60% and AGIP had 20%, and Phillips Petroleum had 20%. They produce 150,000, mostly from small onshore fields. Elf Petroleum Nigeria Limited, a joint venture between NNPC had 60% and Elf had 40%, produced approximately 125,000 during 1997, both on and offshore. Elf and Mobile are in dispute over operational control of an offshore field with a production capacity of 90,000. Texaco of Overseas Petroleum Company of Nigeria, a joint venture operated by Texaco and owned by NNPC. NNPC had 60%, Texaco had 20%, Chevron had 20%. Currently produces about 60,000 barrels from 5 offshore fields. Apart from the above stated joint ventures currently being run by the multinationals, there are several other joint ventures being run by NNPC together with smaller and domestically owned oil companies. Model form of a JV. So there are different forms of joint venture agreement, and we listed a few. So we have oil and gas UK joint venture agreement. So this is a model form of joint venture agreement for companies that want to enter into oil production in the UK. We also have the Association of International Petroleum Negotiators joint venture agreement. This is also a model form. So every country and every association, petroleum association, has a model form how they expect a joint venture to be. So if you want to enter some form of exploration or production, you can follow any of this. So, but on an international basis, the Association of International Petroleum Negotiators joint venture agreement has enjoyed the widest usage. So most people like to use that. While model form joint venture agreement may be useful as a starting basis for negotiations between joint venture parties, they are not a silver bullet and should never be a substitute for the application of legal, commercial, and technological logic and analysis. So basically what this is saying is that even when you have like model forms, you should also take some other consideration should factor those considerations while you are drafting your joint ventures. So we'll move to the key clauses in a joint venture agreement. So we talked about what a clause is. A clause is a section in a legally enforceable contract that contains terms and conditions and important provision of a legal agreement. In general, agreements or contract are made up of many different clauses, all of which serve a different purpose. Together, these clauses form a legally binding contract for the parties to sign. Clauses in a contract are important for laying out certain conditions under which parties agree to the terms of the contract. They also can provide direction on how the contract will be enforced under different conditions or events. So the key clauses are the most important clauses that you should find in most joint venture, model joint venture agreements. So these are some of the important clauses. Number one is the nature of the relationship and parties' contribution to the joint venture. So as regards the nature of relationship, one of the most important functions of the joint operation agreement is to explain the nature of the relationship between the joint venturers. As one aspect of this is whether the parties owe fiduciary relationship to one another or whether theirs is merely a contractual relationship where the parties remain at arm's length. So in as much as they are separate, they owe them two companies coming together. The joint venture agreement will state how that relationship should it be a fiduciary relationship or should it just be a mere contractual relationship? Thus, either party owe themselves some sort of obligations during the agreement, or they are just two separate companies and they are just doing their thing on their own. So also the parties' contribution to the joint venture agreement is also important, because this will explain the contribution of the parties to the agreement. This is to ensure that each party understands what they will be committing to the venture, and also to ensure that they are bound by that commitment. So each party has the contract will outline what each party brings to the table. So if it's operations, then the contract will state that party A is bringing operations to the table. If it's funding, the contract also states likewise. So sharing of profits and decision making are also some key important considerations, clauses as well. So sharing of profit is an important consideration, particularly in terms of the structure of the venture, is how profits, risks, and liabilities will be shared. Is it the intention that the profit and liabilities will be divided according to the parties' ownership interest, or will the liabilities of some parties be capped with other parties having unlimited liability? So the structure of how sharing will also be in the agreement. Is there going to be a form of limited profit, or you just share it according to how everybody works, or will it just be a general profit sharing model that will be used? In terms of decision as well, the joint venture will be talking of how each party will make decision, who takes the overall decision at the end of the day. So that's something that will be there. So intellectual property, we know in this age and time, companies don't want anybody stealing their intellectual property, even if they're coming together. So there has to be a clause that protects each person's intellectual property in terms of maybe design or structure, or the kind of equipment they are going to bring to the table. So it protects them to the extent that even after the joint venture agreement, they are not, one other company does not steal their intellectual property. Confidentiality clause is also very important. So we know that it's very possible at the end of the day, when two parties leave a particular venture, they might adopt what one party has seen is doing and put it into their business operations to make more profit. But in a model joint venture, there's always this confidentiality clause that no other third party or both parties are bound by the agreement and should not discuss whatever that has been undergone in that agreement with any other person. So force majeure clause is also very important. The force majeure or greater force clause details what to do when circumstances arise that are beyond anyone's control. Sometimes parties cannot perform their obligations due to unprecedented and unexpected events. The force majeure clause relieves the parties in default from its obligation to perform. So force majeure basically is a clause that outlines that in the event that certain things happen that are beyond each party's control, they will not be held liable for that. So the dispute resolution clause is also very important. We know that disagreements will inevitably arise during some business relationship. Contract with a well-planned dispute resolution clause can provide guidelines for a swift and amicable remedy to the matter. So as we discussed earlier on, we said that the way energy transactions are, is not always good to have it in the open or be subject to litigation. So there has to be some sort of clause that outlines that in the event that there's a dispute, maybe they have to see
Please, can we still hear him? Can we still hear Chisom?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I was talking of the importance of a JVA. So second importance is a joint venture can be entered into where oil projects are big for a single company to finance on its own in terms of assessing funds and cost exposure. So it's just basically what I said earlier on about the energy project being so big that sometimes it might not be practically undertaken by one company. So two companies have to come together and undertake such projects. So another importance is a joint venture is necessary where pooling the assets of participants or leveraging collective political influence may allow a JV to develop a market-leading position in a particular geography, thereby providing advantages that no participant could attain working alone. So as I said earlier on, like a joint venture is so big, and when you have so many you have so many companies in undertaking different oil projects. So it will be in the best interest of those oil companies to pool resources together so that they can have some sort of competitive advantage over others in the field as well. So in instance where you have like one party handling operations and they are very good, they are specialists in operations, and another party handling funding or investment because they have like huge assets and liabilities. When they come together, they're able to maintain a strong stance in the oil market. So also a JV is necessary where some countries require foreign companies to work with local entities to participate in their market. So if you notice, most of the joint ventures with NNPC are with foreign companies. So it helps countries, these countries, specifically countries like Nigeria, to get those foreign companies to come into Nigeria. So conclusion, we know how important it is for law and contracts. The fact that contract regulates, which if you have a model joint venture, it will better regulate operations in the petroleum industry. For exploration and production operation, the contractual agreement can be in the form of a joint venture, joint operating agreement, production sharing contract, or rig service contract. So these are just some forms of joint venture. From all stated, joint venture contracts have proved to be the most advantageous for the efficient operation in the Nigerian petroleum industry with 71.43% optimality. JVs accorded both government and oil companies with the participatory interest in the oil and gas exploration, development, and production. In the oil and gas operation, JV partners, in proportion to their participating interest, contribute funds. Finally, joint ventures are provided sustainable development through contribution to environmental, social, and economic sustainability in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chisom, for that presentation. I think you did well talking to your friends and explaining it. So we'll be going straight to hear from our mentors who have wide experience in this field. First of all, would like to hear from Mr. Toby Amor. So we'd like to hear your comments on the topic and the presentation and about this topic. So let's hear from Mr. Toby.
Thank you, Juliana. I think that both groups, their presentations were well delivered. The slides show that they did some substantial research. So well done to both teams for doing that. I think that they within, the time that he had and the sort of facilities that he had access to, I think that the presentations were well done. Just few minor comments that I just wanted to add, which I suppose they must have come through in doing their research, is that the concept or commodity of energy is now very wide. And so when we're dealing with, instances or issues around energy contracts, more than ever before, they're now more specialized depending on the source or type of energy that you're dealing with. So oil and gas used to be roped in line together before, but now more than ever before, we have a sort of a wider margin between issues that come up in oil versus natural gas or other forms of processed gas. And then with electricity as well, there are issues when you're dealing with fossil fuel, when you're dealing with renewable energy. So those are usually issues that come up. Issues that also come up for joint ventures are usually depending on what stage of the project is at or what the parties want to do. So if they're entering into a JV for the purposes of exploring, it's quite nuanced and different from if they're entering to produce in a field that has already been explored, or if they're planning to acquire interests in an oil field or an asset that is already ongoing and in production. So those are just some of the issues that usually come up. And then just I saw that the presenters also talked about the examples of JVs, and they mentioned the ones with NNPC. I have not personally checked into this, but I just hearing the presentation, I thought it would be interesting to probably see what changes would have been made to those agreements based on the recent restructuring of the NNPC that went on. If NNPC were the counterparties to those agreements, perhaps maybe there were some innovations or some amendments to those agreements to reflect the current structure of the NNPC. I don't know the answer to it, but I just thought it's something that would be nice to look into. But overall, I thought that the presentations were very good. So well done to both groups. Thanks, Juliana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Topi. Okay, so we'd also like to hear from Mr. Ayobami.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, I must first say that I'm currently on site, so you might hear lots of noise around, and so just pardon me, please. Please, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So, so basically, I was trying to follow up with the presentations, and I got a draft last night, which I sorry I couldn't do an in-depth reading, but I skimmed through it, and I just wanted to touch on a bit around basically some contractual requirements I've come across over the years, and which I've seen caused a lot of problems when it comes to oil and gas and power, especially when it involves multinational investments or multinational companies or contractors or suppliers, basically. And one of them is I've found to be always quite important is on taxation. Taxation across, especially when you're having a foreign entity and a Nigerian entity. I mean, it's always a problem, because the foreign entity most likely will tell Nigerian entity that, taxation in Nigeria, it's your call. I'll take care of any tax outside Nigeria or in my place of doing business, basically. And sometimes Nigerian entity agreeing to that, and it causes a lot of problem. Why problem? Now, if you're talking about the basics, basic withholding tax, VAT, yeah, that's okay, or maybe NCDMB, 1%, or maybe it is a maritime contract that has to do offshore maritime, you're talking about cabotage 2%, that's fine. But usually, by doing business in Nigeria, the foreign entity might have to pay company income tax and personal income tax, and that's not what's always factored. We're doing the costing in the balance sheet, basically. Yeah. So you see, for example, the last time I checked, a personal, if a foreign entity is going to have their personal in country for like, I think between 120 days or above, they have to pay taxes for those personal in country. So even though they're not registered in Nigeria, they still have to pay tax. And guess who FRS or LIRS or any of the internal state tax bodies will come after? The person bringing them in. So, and usually in the costing, you see that there's why they'll think about withholding tax and VAT. They would never, ever factor in company income tax and personal income tax of the other entity, the foreign entity. So it's something that we should always keep in mind while doing the contracting in oil and gas and power, especially. Yeah. So also I wanted to touch a bit on dispute resolution. Yeah. So I've seen that it's common to see that Nigerian Bar Association, for example, has tried to encourage that all dispute resolutions and contracts should be done in Nigeria, basically. I mean, if it's the court system or if it's the alternative dispute resolutions, the mediations and negotiations and arbitrations. But in reality, a foreign entity would never ever want to do put it dispute resolution in Nigeria because they're scared of our court system, the long delays in the court system, and they know how far from the High Courts to the Supreme Courts, how long it will take. So they always try to be careful not to have that. But secondly, they also have try to use the word slight distrust in the legal system and judicial system in Nigeria. So that also scares them a lot. So what they do most likely is try and see if they can use the UK, for example, or Singapore, But from research, I would say you never try that because I once had a research paper on that, and I found out that 9 out of the 10 times the arbitration body always favor a Chinese entity, so an outside entity, basically. So the main aim is to try and look for a system that works and a balanced system. But so also the real issue here is that they will tell you that the provisions usually is always that the governing law, for example, if you're using the UK, the governing law will be the UK, and arbitration will be maybe London Court of Arbitration and everything. But the issue we have is that while doing our contracting, most of the lawyers don't even have the knowledge of what the laws in the UK says or how to go about the whole arbitration process. So it gives the other party an advantage because what is not covered under the contract most likely have to go into the laws of England and Wales. And if you don't have the knowledge about it, then there's an issue because you see the other lawyer trying to outsmart you, basically. So it's important that you stick to the jurisdiction or you seek outside help. We're in an era whereby we have a lot of lawyers practicing multiple jurisdictions around the world, and something you can always lean on or try and gain advice on how things are being done. Because if you readily disagree, everybody always think you don't get that dispute resolutions, but I've been in a dispute resolution and the contracting part whereby $90 million was at stake. So from the beginning, everybody was friendly and everybody was good. So you never know where it would definitely go wrong. So in this couching dispute resolution clauses, you need to be careful about the place of dispute, the type of dispute, and the governing laws especially. So you don't want to agree to things you're not familiar with because that's leaving things open-ended and anything can just happen. So that's a second thing. Then also, it's important also to note security while doing, a contract, basically. That talks about if things go wrong, how do you protect yourself? That's talking about things like the bank guarantees, the withholding sums, the parent guarantee, APGs, the BGs, and everything. It's very important because, if you're going to advance some, for example, for a contract and done that work has not been done, then it's an advance payment guarantee. Or else, if anything goes wrong, then how do you reclaim your money back from them easily from the contractor? So it's as easy as when you have a proper one, tender it to the bank, and you get your sum backs and things like that. So this has some few things I came to my head at the moment. Sorry, I'm just pretty stressed out. I've been on the site all day, working on the power project, and it's been getting me a bit worked up. Yeah. So also I want to touch a bit on diversification of portfolio. Now, like you say, to 2030 European Union. Hello, can you hear me? Sorry.
Okay, I can hear you
We
now.
can hear you.
So,
Okay, good.
Yes.
Sorry, what did you say?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So also on that diversification of portfolio now, Nigeria is primarily we talk about a lot about oil and gas, but we know that the energy market around the world is moving in a lot faster than oil and gas. 2030, the European Union has a regulation out on over 60% of vehicles should go electric, and electric vehicles, and even it's been tested on airplanes now and marine vessels. So France has a 2040, England has a 2040 target to win themselves off oil and gas, and so you see Total upstream now changing them into Total Energies because such development into new energy practices it's on the rise now because next 10, 20 years, oil and gas might not be as viable as it is right now, and there's a shift in other forms of energy. So it's important that oil and gas companies, especially, or oil and gas companies, diversify into other forms of energy, power, fertilizers, hydrocarbons, it's quite a lot of that you can diversify and spread your risk and, basically prepare for the future. And that's one of the things I'm doing currently, where I'm handling the project whereby trying to diversify into other forms of energy of oil and gas, because you have to prepare for the future. It's just basically don't put all your eggs in one basket, spread it around and things like that. Yeah. So I hope that short talk has been quite helpful, and because I really have to go right now. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayobami. Sorry, the network is a bit breaking here.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my bad from my end, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just quickly go to the questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayobami. The network here is a bit poor, so apologies if I missed some parts of it. So I'll just quickly read out the questions so that we can just quickly jump into it. Okay, so our first question is
Our first question is for Mr. Ayobami. So the first question is, what are the possible sustainable energy practices? This question goes to Mr. Ayobami, please. Hello, Mr.
Yeah, so
Ayoba.
basically, sustainable practices basically it's all saying how do we protect our future generations, how do we make sure that we don't affect the environment, and how there's no depletion of resources. So
Let me know if you can hear me.
sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can
Okay,
please
perfect.
continue.
So it all has to do with like I said, how to protect our future generations. Make sure that the environment is friendly. Protect the climate and make sure that we don't deplete resources for our future generations. So that's basically what sustainability is all about. So and practices we should do is we have to first start with going paperless as much as possible, reduce the cutting of trees and reduce the cutting of trees and the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Try and recycle things as much as possible. Reuse, grow your own produce. Try and as little as just put off the electricity when you're not in use or when you're out of your house. Donate items not in use. Don't just put them in a dump and and end up in a waste somewhere. And try and use renewable energy as much as possible. Basically, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So the next question is for Mr. Adum. What are the global energy challenges? Mr. Adum, please, are you with us? Okay, Mr. Toby Amo. It's not here with us. Please, Mr. Obami, I think you'll be the one to take all the questions today because
Okay, let's see how fast we can go because I have a meeting coming up. So basically, the challenges right now we are facing around the world is number one.
The global challenges. What are the global challenges?
The global challenges like we know about the Russian-Ukraine war right now.
Yes.
Russia apparently has a pipeline through Ukraine that supplies 40% of European gas. So the war is going on now, and there's a problem. Russia is threatening with it, and of course, supply has been reduced and not even totally cut off.
Okay.
So you see that there's growing oil scarcity. Prices in the US has hit the roof. OPEC is trying to see how they can regulate prices and more of more production and things like that. So now we have growing oil price scarcity actually, and of course, growing oil prices. That's one of the challenges we're facing currently. Security. Installation offshore and as with HSC, safety, security of energy, basically. Then, of course, you have the environmental degradation. You have spills, and you have Nigeria Delta is a good example whereby the land, farmlands, the air, the water are all polluted. So these are challenges. Of course, capital finance is a very big one. Financing right now, CBN is said to trying to see how they can reduce interest rates, or from double digit into single digit, and see how they can pump in more money into those energy sectors, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. So
You're
the
welcome.
next question is: does the liberation of the energy market increase price volatility?
Basically, yes, it's supposed to help in the sense that it creates a great competition. For example, we're having the electricity and the gas markets, and it makes it more competitive, whereby, like we used to have in most advanced countries, whereby you choose which provider you want to have. But in Nigeria currently now, you have to either in Abuja, then there's Abuja Electrical Distribution Commission. So you're stuck with them, basically. You don't have options of competition, and that's why if the prices are high, they're high. No demand and supply in force.
Okay.
And most especially in Nigeria now, we have transition is still being handled by the government, which is still surprising. I mean, supposed to go around. Let's more complaints come in, let them handle from the generation to the distribution and the transmission. So that would bring in demand and supply, and of course, prices will be more competitive, and hopefully a reduction in prices too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the fourth question, we highlighted it. That means the mentees, they highlighted a few global best practices of energy contracts. However, the subject matter of diversification project portfolio is not clear. Can it be explained further?
Okay, so that was similar to what I said earlier when I said that a good example is Total Upstream now turning into Total Energy. It's basically they're trying to diversify into other forms of energy. Oil and gas is not only the viable one. Next 10, 15 years, you see most likely, a lower demand of that. So that means you need to go into a lot of other things. So that's why you see companies in Nigeria going into power now. This oil and gas alone. We need to production of fertilizers, loop plants. They're all byproducts of energy, of food sometimes, and then of course other forms of energy also, because the future goes beyond oil and gas. We can't. The beauty of it is that electricity is even being tried. They're trying to use it to even fly an airplane, or a ship on the sea. So that's how energy has advanced. So it goes beyond just energy and oil and gas alone. Yeah, we need to not put all our eggs in one basket. Spread it around. Do a lot of research and development. In those bringing out newer, renewable, sustainable energy into the world, basically. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The last question, the fifth question is, how do you draft a proper dispute resolution clause under the GVA, that's joint venture?
Okay. Yes. So, like I think I mentioned a bit earlier when I was giving that talk that where both parties need to the lawyers need to be careful about having a knowledge of what you want to do when there's a dispute. Usually, you will see that they give you, for example, tell you that the two CEOs will meet within 30 days and see if they can talk it through. Maybe if it doesn't work out, to tell you that within the next 30 days, maybe we'll try mediation. Mediation is an alternative dispute resolution whereby both parties come together. A mediator tries to let them meet a compromise, basically. Now, the mediator is not a binding person. He can't force them, but he needs to talk to both of them to agree. Now, if that doesn't work, usually it moves on to arbitration. Arbitration is now more binding on those parties because, an award can be given and it's binding, and enforceable in the law courts, So, but like I said, it's important that the governing of transaction is both parties are familiar with the laws governing the transaction, because if they are not, then it puts them on a disadvantage, because what's not covered under the agreement, you have to make recourse to the law. And if you're familiar with the law, then it's a big problem. So the place of arbitration, the governing law are so important. Now, if you don't have knowledge of how those two processes are done, then you're already at a disadvantage already. So it's normal for everybody to think that, we are friends, nothing will ever go wrong. But hey, that's why we are lawyers. We're lawyers because things they always sometimes to just go on wrong, So you need to prepare ahead of things going wrong from the beginning. And that's why you need to put all these, make sure that the governing law is tight. The place of arbitration is something we are familiar with, and of course try and I always don't advise law courts, because sometimes it takes quite a long time to get things resolved, but I always prefer alternative dispute resolution, arbitration, mediation first, and arbitration next. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank all our mentors for the impactful knowledge they gave us today, and we advise all the mentees that are still with us to put on their video, so we take a screenshot of everybody. Please, if you are still with us, put on your video. Okay. Mr. Adun, Mr. Jibola. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. for today. Apologies for my network here, but I really want to say a very big thank you for your time. And to all the mentees, thank you so much for joining us. I trust that we've been able to learn something valuable from the session today. I also want to thank Hussein for stepping in during the network issue. Thank you for moderating, and to everyone, okay, sorry, I can see that that Folabi Ojosu is here. We're about rounding up, but I think it would be good for him to say something just before we leave. Hi, Afolabi. Would you like to say something before we round up for today? Okay, so I don't know if he's still here because the network issue is poor. So I think he has logged out.
Yes.
So with that, I just want to say a very big thank you to everyone. Have an amazing day, and hopefully we'll see you on Friday during the closing ceremony. Mr. Folabi, can you hear me?
All right. Good evening, everybody. I sincerely apologize. I think I was in the middle of the lagoon at the point, so I was on a boat. So I sincerely apologize. I think I lost connectivity. Basically, I would like to say very good work to the presenters. The very first presenter that spoke on energy contracts. Your contract seems to be focused on the U.S. Administration for energy contracts. I think it's right that you look at the Nigerian position for energy contracts. You could look at such books like Inka Omorogbe on energy contracts, on oil and gas contracts, and I believe those would have pointers for you. For the second presenter that spoke about JVAs, I did not see the mention of incorporated JVs as we're looking at having in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. So I think that would also be a study. So those are just my 2 comments.
Thank you very much, Afolabi, for dropping those comments.
Okay, I think our network is bad. So I think we've come to the end of today's session. Thank everybody for your attendance and have a nice week.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah.